Hey blade lovers, we've got a real treat for you today. We have a button lock bonanza, I'm calling it. A dozen, yes, a baker's dozen. No, a baker's dozen's 13. Well, we got a dozen. We got a dozen button locks. Button locks have become all the rage in late 2021 into all of 2022. Here we are in October of 2022, where this video will be dropping, and I tried to get as wide an assortment from different brands and makers and designers as I could assemble here, and I'm sure I left some out. I know for sure I left a Williamson EDC tack out, but I just dropped a video on Williamson knives, so you can see that button lock right there. But represented today, we have a TwoSun, we have Maxace, we even have Columbia River, Civivi, Hogue, and some real odd and peculiar ones that I'll show you in a moment. And maybe we'll just get that one out of the way right now. And that is the MaxVenom Dimachaerus, the one that looks kind of like a wrench here down at the bottom. It is a very long knife that is not easy to open with one flip. It's no longer in production. They made this full-size one and they made a smaller one. If you've learned that they're back in production, certainly let me know. But this is a button lock for sure. With a 4-position clip that is not deep carry, an aluminum handle out of T6 aluminum. This one's been customized. I picked it up on eBay. It was black and they kind of steampunked it. It's 154 cm steel, and as you can see, it has a very large opening hole. It does not ride on anything other than the handles. That's the way it came to me. There are no washers, there are no bearings, but it is smooth, even though it would take a wrist flick and a little bit of energy from your finger to open it. It's got a lot of ways of opening. You can roll it open with the thumb. You can get fancy and put your fingers through here and flip it open, and I don't really have room. And actually cut myself once doing it that way, so forget it in front of the camera. Again, that's the Dimachaerus, named after Roman soldiers that carried 2 swords crossed on their backs. So I understand. It's a big knife. It's about a 4.5-inch blade. It is just an oddball. It was designed for defensive martial arts type use, and I'm hanging on to it just because it's an oddball. But yes, there is your button lock, and it does drop shut and swing freely. It's got a little bit of blade play and a little bit of lock rock, very tiny bit. And whether or not it deserves to have some aftermarket washers installed, I don't know. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on each of these knives today. I'm going to pick them up and put them back, and therefore we don't need to bring them back in for any final shot. Let's move to a very popular button lock this year, the Begleiter button lock, Kaiser Begleiter button lock XL. So it's the Begleiter XL. It was a special and still is from White Mountain Knives. By the way, if you're shopping for any of these at White Mountain Knives, don't forget to use my discount code OLDSWORD for 10% off. This is just a beautiful knife, well balanced all the way around. You got a beautiful drop point, spear point there. And as far as the button locks go, on all of these, there's a tiny little bit of stick that I found on all button locks, but it's locked, it's tight, so it doesn't have any play. So it's engaged firmly. And you have problems sometimes with button locks in a number of different places. I'll just go over this once and it applies to all. where the button goes through the handle material into the steel frame and then engages on the other side and also engages the blade is a more complex situation than you might think. It also depends upon whether or not they're using pins or some other means to stabilize the blade in the lock position. This is now extremely firm and tight, and yet closes with not much pressure at all. The other big complaint you hear about button locks is that they're going to close accidentally when you don't want them to. That can happen with a liner lock and a frame lock, as well as even perhaps a bar lock or axis lock. But I haven't found an issue there. In the positions that I hold it in, that button is not being touched. Okay? So yes, the stick part is that it can get hung up going through the frame. What Jared Neve had mentioned in a short video he did on his channel, without a demo but explaining it, was to loosen all the screws on this side, including the pivot, take them out, then put them back in with a little bit of Loctite and balance them, tightening in a sequence. That doesn't work for everybody that's having button lock problems. The other thing would be to use something like Tough Glide, although some people don't like to use any lubricants at all. So, you know, it's going to be a personal decision, and you're going to have to figure it out or return the knife if it's really bad. You know, as soon as you get it, use your threshold for return. I know White Mountain will take knives back with no questions asked. So you just write them, let them know there's a problem, and they will take it back. This one's been tuned up nicely. It is perfect, and the nice thing about most button locks is you can just press on the button and basically gravity knife it open, and that could be a problem if gravity knives are not legal in your area. This one's got thumb studs and a flipper tab, and it's a beautiful almost 4-inch bladed knife. That is the Begleiter XL, exclusive to White Mountain. Here's another Begleiter. This is the Begleiter 2 button lock. There is a Begleiter 2 liner lock. This one is the button lock. I love that they used all this jimping on there, and it's file-like. No stick on this one. They do make some strange sounds sometimes because when it gets going, sometimes the bearings sound so loose that it sounds like something's wrong in the knife. And let's see if you can hear it. I don't know if you can hear that. It's kind of a little bit of a metallic sound before the opening. You might actually like it. This Begleiter 2 has a combo red and black carbon fiber. Really nice. Blacked out button, blacked out clip. I'm not going to go into all the details. As I said, there are individual reviews on all the knives you see on the table, all 12 of them. Should you want to know more about the knife, just check them out on my channel. You could probably do a search for button lock and find them all, and some extras that aren't even in this group. But it's a beautiful drop point with a kind of a hint of a clip there. It's interesting the way they did these on the Begleiter 2. Beautiful knife. Looking for an EDC? This is really one that I would consider. Let's see if I can put them all back with the buttons on there and go on next door here, if I can pull it out without knocking everything else around. And this is the Hogue. And this is the Hogue EX-02, and if it isn't the EX-02, I get confused sometimes, but I have it listed in my database as an EX-02. It's a beautiful plunge lock, button lock. Believe they put these on washers, and it behaves like a knife on washers in that there's a little bit of friction there. It doesn't swing free when you push the button. Give it a little flick and it goes right back into place. What they arranged on all of the Hogues with button locks is the safety. So once you engage that, you can't push the button. But the buttons are so muted here that you've actually got to push in and below the surface to disengage it. which is a great way to have a safety on this knife. Lava G10, Damascus they call it, with this really interesting piranha grip. Made in the USA. If you're looking for a button lock made in the USA, look no further than Hogue. And yes, this is a aftermarket Hogue clip that is a deep carry, or pretty much deep carry. They come with an odd looking spoon clip, which you may or may not like. 4 position attachments. No, I'm sorry, 2 position attachments, point up or point down, right side only, unfortunately. And the thumb studs work very well with this knife. This is a 4-inch drop point. They make a 3.5-inch drop point and a tanto, and they have the EXO1, I believe that's the correct number, with a FRN style handle. Beautiful knife. If you want a big button lock, that's the one. Unless you go to LTK's design here for TwoSun. This is the Vandal. And what is the number on the Vandal? It is the TS329. You know, I should have looked. No, actually it won't be on the blade. What he did was tuck all the information into the handle, and we're going to find it. There it is. Right up in there. You may not be able to see it, but it is the 329. It's M390 on this one. But didn't mention the steels on the other ones. I'll see if I can get back to them. But again, it's more about the button lock than the steel. But this is a chunky knife. He recently came out with another. I don't know who's making it. It's about a 3.5-inch knife. This one's coming up close to 4. This was supposed to be openable with the fuller, but they didn't give you enough traction on the fuller. So pretty much everybody I know, except those that have modified them to be looser, are just opening it with a button, which is certainly no problem. Big titanium, thick handle with a nice inlay there of carbon fiber. That is the TS329 from TwoSun, the Vandal. Great first design by Love Them Knives. And since we're touching this one, let's go to the Sencut Saxy. And Saxy is a town in Texas, I'm told. That's as much as I know. This is a decent little button lock. It's got a little bit of stick there at the beginning, but other than the Begleiter XL, I haven't run into a knife that's totally become almost inoperable until I fixed it. But there it is. Yep, there is some heavy stick. Okay, and some other people have noticed this too. Could be my copy. A lot of people complain, and then other people say, hey, theirs is fine. So this one doesn't see a lot of pocket carry, but as you know, Sencut is a lower budget line of Civivi and WE knives. Nice little blade. I think they use their, what do they use on this guy? Do they even tell you? I think it's 9CR18 MOV. Pretty sure. But I'm not finding that steel imprinted anywhere. Could be I'm just missing it. Yeah, some significant stick on and off with this knife on this copy, I have to say. That's the Saxy by Sencut. Moving down the line to a Civivi. It was one of the first Civivi button locks. This is the Cogent. And I've got like 3 versions of this because I really not liked the knife when it first came out. Again, you can open it using the button. This is, I think they did, what did they do on this one? Civivi, where is your info? I think this one is, let's look it up. Time for the database. This This is the Cogent. It's in 14C28N. I was leaning towards it being in that, but I wanted to be sure. Light knife, well milled out, weight relieved. A little bit of stick on that button too. I mean, maybe we can't get away from it. I'm sure if you go high end, you will find one that is smooth, or maybe just tune it so it works for you. But that's a nice little almost Bowie-ish clip point. Nice jimping there, and these are partly serrated. I do find a use for those, cutting plastic straps and other tougher materials, hose and so forth, where your blade would normally slide off. So 14C28N on that guy, the Cogent. Next door here we have a Columbia River knife, and this is a very interesting knife. I didn't know until I picked this up that they had button locks. However, this is the Tighe BT Fighter, 3.64 inch and 8 CR13 MOV. It's designed by Brian Tighe. His customs on these will cost you about $1,200. So under $100 for this one. Interesting clip. This is the clip he tends to use. These big standoffs, so you have pretty much a straight clip on that, and it does work very well in and out of the pocket with its tighter clip, but that ball does help. You got both a flipper and double thumb studs. I did initially have a version of this that had a lot of stick and some play. I sent it back. I think this was from Knife Center or perhaps Blade HQ, and they sent me a good copy. So FRN molded handle, bigger knife, and it's very ergo friendly, I find. Somewhat subdued button lock that is protected by the handle there, which is a good thing. This one locks up tight. I've had no issue with it. It's a neat knife for not much money. That is the BT Tighe Fighter from Columbia River. And next door here we have the Civivi Elementum button lock. I think it was one of my first button locks. This one in Damascus that has been kind of a dark coated, and a really interesting shred carbon fiber in all kinds of colors, blue, black, and gray on this one. Useful jimping. And the interesting thing about this one was, and the complaints from everybody, it locks closed as well as locking open. So there's a detent for the open position, or I should say a lock cutout in the blade for the open and the closed positions. They later changed this on their other button locks, and I don't think they've come out with anything since that is only that is locking open and closed. But you know, it's kind of nice. It's not going to open accidentally. Deep carry clip. And what's the steel on this guy? Did they even tell you? Got to refer to my notes again. What did I say? This one is the Coach. Nope. Where is it? Elementum. Okay. Well, it's Damascus, right? I'm not sure what the Damascus is. Sometimes they use 9CR18 MOV. So I shouldn't have even questioned myself as to what the steel is, because they don't often tell you on the stainless Damascus, but it is a stainless Damascus. I don't think we got to this one yet. This is the Kizer Assassin XL, believe it or not, even though it isn't all that XL, because we're running about a less than a 3.5 inch blade, about a 3.4 inch blade on this. Long run of jimping though, which Kizer does sometimes. I like that. You want to stretch your thumb way out and still have a grip, you can. This button lock has been pretty good since I got it. A very little stick, maybe the least stick of them all. Deep carry clip, reversible, and we got like a gray-green micarta on this one. And the steel on this guy is 154 cm. A little bump up, big lanyard slot. I think it would make a decent EDC knife. Locks up very well. No blade play, no lock rock. That is the Kizer Assassin. Do you really want to carry a knife called the Assassin? And yes, it's labeled as such. All right. What have we missed? Well, we got to go to the big boy here. How about the Maxace Babylon? It will drop on your fingers, the Babylon will. They love these giant thumb studs. All titanium, M390 blade. Interesting reverse tanto, if you want to call it that. Kind of like Benchmade 940. Big old opening hole there. I mean, you can, if you get your fingers out of the way, easily middle finger flick it. But you know, the thumb studs are so convenient. Why not use them? Titanium clip that's been blued, blue anodized, not reversible. You're not going to see too many titanium clips that are reversible. But yeah, one of my favorite button locks for sure. And a little bit of lock stick on that one too. Maybe it's to be expected and accepted. I don't know. And I think it's finally, we get to our 12th knife. This is the TwoSun TS313. This is a design by Night Morning. You can see it right there on the pocket side of the plunge lock. Some people have said that they can defeat that lock by wrapping on the back of the blade. I guess my answer to that is I wouldn't wrap on the back of the blade. But I do see the issue here, if it is an issue, and that is the amount of engagement that we have, which is very small. You can see on the locking part of that plunge and the blade, not a whole lot of engagement. If this was a liner lock, it would be like about a 15%, 20%, something like that. And you know what? Maybe because of that, there is no stick. Only knife I pulled out here today with no stick. Zero stick. Nothing. Just smoothly goes in. So maybe that's what you got to have in order to have a button lock with no stick. But I know you guys out there have said that you've got your button locks with no stick, so I believe it. All titanium M390 on this guy. An interesting knife. It's staying in the collection. I do like it. Whether or not it's got shallow engagement on that lock. So there you go. I'm not going to recite the names of them all, but I will list them, even if I don't list links for them all, because obviously stuff like the Dimachaerus you are not going to find for sale, except maybe on the secondary market on eBay, which is where this one came from. Hope you enjoyed this review, or really an overview, really kind of a survey of some button locks, all different kinds. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. More good content coming out soon. Take care.